Okay, we're going to look at the medical legal aspects of out-of-hospital care. This is Chapter 7 of Volume 1. This is the preparatory standard, competency, we as paramedics, AEMTs, or medical providers in general must be familiar with the legal issues that we are likely to encounter in the field. We need to be prepared to make those medical decisions and appropriate legal decisions from call to call, day to day, throughout our career. Of course, the laws vary from state to state. Protocols vary from county to county. Some states have statewide protocols, however, and may have statewide medical control. Others have individual medical control and individual protocols county to county. And for specific legal questions, probably best we get the opinion or advice of an attorney who has a little bit more knowledge in this specific area. As a paramedic or provider of any level, you have legal duties to the patient, crew, medical director, and to the public at large. Based on the accepted standards set by statutes, regulations, and what would any other prudent practitioner with equal experience and training do. The best protection from liability is to perform a systematic patient assessment that is the same on every patient. Provide appropriate medical care for the condition or the call, and accurate and complete documentation. This picture here looks like it has all kinds of liability written all over it. Of course, we don't know the story behind this. But a combative or emotionally disturbed patient are unpredictable. Probably need to work on de-escalation before physical contact, that kind of thing. Our ethical responsibilities are to respond promptly to both the physical and emotional needs of every patient, treat all patients and their families with courtesy and respect, maintain our skills and our medical knowledge through continued competency and refreshing our knowledge every year and continuing our education. As stated again, participate in continuing education programs, seminars, and refresher trainings. Critically review your performance and constantly seek improvement. This is the perfect time after a call, especially if you have somebody that has more experience partnered with you or involved in the call, is to ask. Just ask, what could I have done differently? Did that go well? Did it not go well? What did you think about the call? Report honestly and with respect for patient confidentiality. I think that speaks for itself. Work cooperatively with and respect other agency professionals, not only with our own agency, but also within like the fire and law enforcement professions as well. We count on these people to help us and these other professions to help us, to keep us safe on scenes, to provide a safe and less hazardous work environment. It only provides more reason to work with them and to respect their positions. At the same time, we demand respect from them as well. Ethical standards are not laws. They are principles that identify desirable conduct by members of a particular group. Our ethical standards may be different from law enforcement's, may be different from fire, may be different from military, may be different from the hospital. Morality, the principle of right and wrong as governed by individual conscience. This is up to you. This is how you were brought up. This is your personal beliefs. Is how your moral compass is set. Shoot. As we enter into the legal system, we got to understand that there's constitutional law that is based on the Constitution of the United States. It protects the people against governmental abuse. There's common law or case law or judge-made law, and this is society's acceptance of customs and norms over time. These change and they grow every year. There is so much case law change that it's very difficult to keep up with. It's worth keeping up with, especially as it relates to the pre-hospital setting. But this is what's set in criminal and civil lawsuits. This kind of law, this is where these laws are set. There's statutory law, which is legislative. Does not come from court decisions. However, it is created by our lawmakers, our senators, our representatives, our elected officials. And then regulatory law is administrative, enacted by administrative or government agency at either the federal or state level. So for us immediately at the Kansas, we have the KAR, the Kansas Adopted Regulations. They are available on the website, and they are what govern not only our education, but our scope of practices, as well as our response and things like that. Criminal law, crime and punishment. It's what laws are there broken. Is it a criminal act? And what punishment goes along with that criminal act. And then there's civil law. These are non-criminal issues, mostly personal injury, contract disputes, divorce, or child custody. That kind of thing is all civil law. Now, criminal law, the charges from a criminal case can spill over into civil law in the instances of wrongful death, injury, liability, that kind of, or negligence, that kind of thing can be tried in both criminal and civil law if a crime was committed, and then if there's a civil punishment or a compensation or something like that that can be gained from it. Within those, you have the plaintiff, which is the person initiating the litigation. In our instances, it's generally the patient that was injured or affected, or the family of a patient. And then the defendant is you, or us, or the service, or the state, depending on where this lawsuit is going, or the civil law is going. But ultimately, it's the person with whom the complaint is made, or against whom the complaint was made. Tort law are the civil wrongs committed by one individual against another. Trial courts, a judge or a jury determines the outcome of the individual cases. And the appellate courts hear the appeals of decisions by trial or appeals courts. As we know, there can be more than one appeal, so appellate courts will continue to hear appeals. Within a civil lawsuit, there's generally an incident that kicks it off, a car accident, something of that nature, where somebody is injured. That person then will speak to a lawyer, and the lawyer will ask questions, asking if there's, during this initial investigation, to see if there's any merit to their complaint, if there's any thing that they feel that can be gained from this as far as compensation or restitution or anything like that. If there is, or if the lawyer feels that there is a case, they then would file a complaint. There would be an answer to that complaint, discovery. This is the examination before the trial. You may give dispositions. They're going to gather information. They're going to do interrogations, request for document production. This is where your documentation of your call is going to come in, the run sheet, that kind of thing. That may or may not lead into a trial or mediation, or potentially may not go this far, but then it goes to trial. Through the trial, all this is put out. We all know what a trial is. A decision is made. The decision is then generally going to be appealed however many times, and then ultimately some kind of settlement is going to come out of this. Laws affecting EMS, its practitioners, especially paramedics, its scope of practice. Scope of practice is defined as the range of duties and skills paramedics are allowed and expected to perform. They are set by state law or regulation and or by local medical direction. Within the state of Kansas, ours are all set by our local medical direction. Within the state, there is no actual defined cap on a paramedic skill or duty. Policy to guide paramedics in dealing with intervener physicians. These are physicians that are not your medical control, not in the ER. They are the ones that may show up on your scenes and that kind of thing, and how to deal with having them and what laws are governing you as opposed to them. Certification is recognition granted to an individual who has met qualifications to participate in a certain activity. A licensure is used to regulate occupations. Understand EMS laws and regulations within your state. So going over the Kansas KAR, the Kansas statutes governing our how EMS is handled at the state level, that trickles down to us at the local levels, county and local levels, is not a bad thing to know your regulations. Special motor vehicle laws govern operation of emergency vehicles and equipment, and they vary from state to state. If you cross state lines in your responses, you need to know the laws in both states. There may be some very different laws on how emergency vehicles are driven or operated within their borders. Each state has different laws to protect the public. There's mandatory reporting, such as reporting domestic violence, child abuse and neglect, elderly abuse and neglect, sexual assault, gunshot and stab wounds, animal bites, communicable diseases. We do need to make sure that we are reporting the things that are mandatory. There's generally a state website with a form to fill out or a phone number to call to report these things. It is our again, it is a mandatory reporting. If something happens and it is found that we have witnessed this or we knew what was going on and we did not report it, there could be repercussions and charges brought back on us. Laws to protect paramedics. Now, for everything there is against us, there are some that protect us. Immunity. Exemption from legal liability when performing your duties as defined and within your scope of practice, as defined by regulation, statute, and protocol, as well as within your scope of practice. Some states have a legal, a qualified immunity, if you will, protecting us from that. There are Good Samaritan laws. There are immunity for people who assist at a medical emergency. Now, this is generally civilians. The Good Samaritan laws do not really apply to us when we have a duty to act. We'll get into that more in a little bit. And then the Ryan White Comprehensive AIDS Resource Emergency Act, the Ryan White CARE Act, and as it relates to exposure to bloodborne and airborne pathogens.